G'day. Today I'm going to do a video on taking Nepenthes cuttings, demonstrating a technique that we use, and then also showing examples of what to expect as the cuttings mature. Today we're going to take cuttings from a ventricosa hot lips. We've chosen this plant simply because it fell from the roof of the greenhouse, so it's a perfect time to chop it up. This is the plant here. So it has two vines coming off of it and a few basils. And we'll just go through the process on what we do. When choosing the plant, we always recommend plants that are grown in your conditions. Anything you can grow well will take cuttings well. We usually wait till a plant produces a vine. We usually wait till it flowers so we know what sex it is, and then we also make sure we have a basil growing out of it. In case the cuttings don't work, we know the plant will continue to grow. So the things you'll need are pots. We use just little tall 70mm pots. We also use just a coconut chip. We use a real coarse mix, and we'll also need some dried long fibre sphagnum moss. So we'll start hydrating the sphagnum moss. One thing we also will need is methylated spirits. We want to make sure we're using disinfected tools just to minimise the risk of viruses and to keep all the cuttings nice and healthy. Once you're all prepared and you have everything ready to go, the next step is taking the actual cuttings. So what we do is just choose a plant. We like to take 3-node cuttings. So a node is anywhere the leaf connects to the stem. Wherever a leaf connects to a stem is where a new growth point will come from, and that's where your cutting will continue to grow from. So we want to take a cutting of this plant here. It's a bit hard to see, but there is some really dried, hard growth down the bottom, so we can't use that. We'll get our cutters, which have been in a disinfected solution. We use methylated spirits, and we're just going to chop the plant. Okay. That's what we're left with. So we can see there's old leaves that are starting to fade. We've had 2 flower spikes come out at the end, and we're going to chop this piece up into our cuttings. Okay, so with this cutting, we got a good growth on it, but we just want to take note that the end of it has terminated growing. So the plant's flowered, for whatever reason, the new growth point on the end has decided to call it quits. So it's a really good time to chop it up, because this vine will eventually die back with nothing else to grow from. So now we'll get to the part where we're going to chop it up. Okay, so we've got our disinfected cutters. What we're going to do is just tidy this piece up a bit. We're going to remove the flower stalks. What we'll also do is remove the tendrils and dead pitches. So these pitches we're going to keep on. They still have colour to the bottom half, and they'll be useful for the cutting still, whereas pitches like this, they'll be removed. They're completely dried and they won't add anything to the cutting. So we will chop the growth point off because it's not doing anything. Now any of the cuts you do, we want to do it at a 45-degree angle to stop moisture sitting on the cut. And then what we'll do when we're taking the cuttings is we'll count down 3 nodes. And just remembering, a node is wherever a leaf joins the stem. So count down 3 leaves, and then we're going to chop halfway between the next leaf. So 1, 2, 3. So we're going to cut right here on a 45-degree angle. So we've got one cutting. and we'll just do one more. So 1, 2, 3, and we'll cut this one at a 45-degree angle. So I'll put this one away for the moment, and we'll show the next step on the cuttings we've already taken. Okay, so what we're going to do, this is our cutting. So we're hoping to have growth come from this joint here or this joint here. This leaf's going to be under the soil, and we're hoping the roots are going to emerge from the bottom half of this. So to tidy this up, we're going to cut the tendrils off because they get caught on other cuttings and can rip the plants out. On the next node that's above soil, I like to keep the pitchers on them. I like to keep the pitchers on. What I will do is cut the lids off, because we want to try and keep water in these pitchers to help feed the cutting. With the very bottom leaf, I chop that off because that's going to be below the media. And then we want to make a slit down the stem and try and spread that apart to encourage more surface area for the roots to grow from. Okay, so we've trimmed our cutting up, and this is what we're going to work with. The next step is to cut a slit, maybe about 2 centimeters up the stem, and we're going to spread that apart to encourage root growth. So make sure you have really sharp cutters that are clean and sterile, and then we're just going to cut the stem so that it looks like this, so that you can spread it apart, effectively separating the bark from the inside a little bit. And then our next step is we're going to get our hydrated sphagnum moss. I like to force this in there just to keep that wedge open. So it'll look like that. And then the next step is we're going to pot this up in media. You can use a little bit more sphagnum moss around it. I generally don't like sphagnum moss. It keeps it too wet and encourages rot. So we just get our little pot. We'll fill it up with some coconut chip. We'll make a hole in the center, and we're just going to poke our cutting down deep, and then we're going to fill it with a bit more coconut chip, and we're going to make it really snug, really tight, so if the plant gets accidentally bumped or knocked or falls off a bench, it's not going to come out. So it's going to look like this. When we're sitting the plant on a bench, I'll position this pitcher so that it's able to get water from the irrigation to keep it full. That'll help with the plant retaining moisture. I'll also keep all the leaves on them. A lot of people like to cut them off, but I find I have more success leaving the leaves on. Now, if you have a large pitcher and it won't stay upright, I pop them in pots just to keep the pitcher upright. It's a real simple way just to make sure the pitchers stay full of water. You can feed them with insects if you like to encourage some growth. I don't. I just let them hang out in the greenhouse. I don't bag them. I leave them open. If the plant is growing well in your conditions, as a cutting, it should root quite well and continue to grow. Once you have done this, in about a month's time, you'll probably expect to see some growth like this. So this is a cutting taking about a month ago. You can see just where the leaf joins the stem, there's a very little bump. That's the node activating. So I'm not sure if you can see that. Maybe that helps. So it starts to rise out, and that's where you'll expect to see new growth. So usually at the very top of the cutting is where you'll see first growth, and then you may see growth down the bottom half. Okay, so this cutting's about 6 months old. So you'll see where the leaves were, and you'll see there's a sprout up the top that's coming out, but it's also emerged from the node under the soil. You'll generally know your cuttings have successfully rooted once you have 3 or 4 leaves on them, and once the plant starts producing pitches, you can be very confident that your cutting will survive. So that's pretty much it for taking Nepenthes cuttings. Some key points are just clean tools, making sure the cuts are at 45 degrees to stop water pooling and causing any sort of rotting issues. Trim the tendrils off to stop the plants getting tangled. Leave any pitches on that still have any sort of colour on them, and then pop them in the back corner of your greenhouse. Leave them alone, just ignore them for the first 3 months, and then check on them after that. If you have some growth, you're doing the right thing. Thanks for watching our video.